Hey guys, I'm Elegant and welcome to another weekly Pokevlog. So we haven't had any more X and Y news, and I've kind of dried out all my ideas about what it could include and what it could be in the Pokemon X and Y in the past couple of weeks. So this week I thought I'd resort back to what I was doing before, talking about ideas and theories and facts about Pokemon. So a while ago you remember that I did a prototype Pokemon video about the Pokemon ideas that Game Freak had before actually publishing the final games, and all the ideas that weren't included into the games. So today I thought I'd do some concepts about Pokemon that were included in the games, and some very strange concepts arose. So I want to start with Wobbuffet. So you might have noticed Wobbuffet has tails with eyes on it, and the tail is actually supposedly Wobbuffet's body, and the blue body you see that you'd think would be Wobbuffet is actually a fake. It's sort of a shield that Wobbuffet uses. And it's shaped as a punching bag, which I thought was quite interesting, like an upside down punching bag. And hence, that's why its eyes does not open. But funnily enough, that doesn't quite explain why Brock's eyes doesn't open still. Or does it? So, the next one you may remember from my prototype Pokemon video, which is Giraffrig. And if you didn't know, Giraffrig's name is a palindrome, so essentially if you write Giraffrig backwards you can still get Giraffrig. It's the same word backwards as forwards. And the original concept was that Giraffrig would be the actual same thing as its name. So you'd have the head on the front and the head on the back, and it'd be exactly the same. But for some reason it was dimmed down. The back head was dimmed down to be sort of a little black tail thing, and the head on the end is much smaller. I don't know why they did that, but it seems like there's someone in the second generation Game Freak team that kind of liked putting heads on the tails of Pokemon, which is kind of strange, but yeah. So the next ones I'm going to be talking about are all quite creepy third generation Pokemon. So you might be able to guess which one's the first one. So I'm going to mention Shedinja. So if you don't know, if you have a free space in your team and you evolve an Nincada and you have a Pokeball in your bag, you evolve the Nincada, which will evolve into Ninjask, but you'll also get another Pokemon called Shedinja, which is a ghost bug type and has a very strange move. It will just appear into your team randomly. I don't know. If you have a space, if it doesn't, it just won't appear. But it has a very special ability which will make it immune to all moves that aren't super effective against it. So you can only do damage to it if you have a status on it, or you have a super effective move against it, so you kind of screw it if you don't have any of those. But it also has 1 HP, which will make it quite weak, but its ability is quite interesting. So the idea behind this is quite strange, so I'm just going to read you some stuff that I got from the Pokedex entries. So apparently it's an empty shell. It's possessed, isn't it? Possessed empty shell, and it'll steal your soul if you look into the hole in its back because it's hollow, which is kind of creepy for Pokemon, for little children. But the idea behind it is that when Nincada evolves, it loses its shell and becomes Ninjask, and there's an empty shell. But then its soul possesses its shell, and it will steal your soul if you look into this. Is really creepy. Hence why its body, several Pokedex entries say its body doesn't move and it doesn't breathe. It's not really alive, it's just an empty shell possessed by a soul. So Pokemon, it's rather disturbing. So the next one is Dusclops, also a third generation Pokemon. And its Pokedex entries say this is also hollow, and if anything's absorbed into it, because it absorbs things for some reason, it will never come back out. This is kind of getting scary. And so the last one is Bandette, which is another third generation Pokemon, like I said. These are all ghost types, by the way. Bandette evolves from Shuppet, which is another ghost type Pokemon. But the idea behind that one says in the Pokedex entries, I'm quoting all the Pokedex entries here, say it's a possessed doll that was left out in the garbage, or the trash, or the rubbish, depending on where you're from and what you call it. But these are very quite disturbing things from the third generation. That someone was rather disturbed then, I must say. So anyway, let's move on to the next point I have. So you may have noticed every fossil Pokemon is part rock type, and you may think this is because, well, it's a fossil Pokemon and fossils or rocks and stuff, but in the actual anime and in the game, the Pokemon researchers say that when they restore a fossil, they don't restore what the Pokemon would be like, they restore the actual exact Pokemon, hence it wouldn't make sense for them to be a rock type. But they are all a rock type. So the idea I was thinking about this, that maybe all Pokemon started off as a rock type, since all the ancient Pokemon were rock types, because, well, the fossil shouldn't affect it, because they were actually resurrected the original Pokemon. So all rock types, and maybe all Pokemon came from rock types, which would be a bit strange because you'd think they come from water types, because of the fact that in real world, all animals came from the water, and water creatures. So maybe in the Pokemon world, they come from a rock type. Also, to back this up, you'll notice the first gym of the first game, just the first gym ever, is a rock type gym. I just thought I'd mention that because it's quite interesting. But I started thinking about this, and it gets a little bit more interesting. If you go throughout the gyms of Kanto, the first ever gyms, you'll notice a pattern emerging. So first of all, there is rock, so that would be the earth appearing. I'm going through what the process of the gyms and comparing it to what I think it would be a good comparison to. So you've got the earth appearing, and then you have the water gym, which is next, so it's the water covering the earth. And then you have the electric gym, like the spark of life. And then you've got the grass gym, all the plants growing. And then the poison, like the difficulty and the hardship and the death of the plants trying to get over like barren land and things, and competition trying to become better to beat each other and live. And then you've got psychic, like the intelligence of evolution and overcoming the poison and the bad things that can kill you. And then you've got fire, the development of technology and the creation of fire, like Stone Age and stuff, when you've got more intelligence to be able to use chemical reactions and things. And then you have ground, which another name for ground is earth. So then you have kind of like the earth today. I thought this was a really cool idea, that going through the first gym as you get the creation of the earth the way it is today. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's very interesting. I totally think about that if you actually think that's quite legitimate. But anyway, here is another really scary, weird one. A lot of people say that Gengar is a dead Clefable, which is quite a disturbing idea. But even though they were introduced in different generations, like the evolution line for Clefairy was introduced throughout different generations, whereas Gengar was all in Generation 1. A lot of people think that Pokemon have been making Pokemon or the Pokemon Company have been making Pokemon throughout all the generations. Like, they made some 5th generation Pokemon while they were in the production of the 1st generation, proven by the girl saying she should like a pink flowery Pokemon in Mount Moon in the 1st generation, and then that appeared in Generation 5. So the idea is that they were making Pokemon all the way through and linking them all. So this is why this idea is legitimate. So people think the evolutionary line of Clefable is the dead version of the evolutionary line of... is the alive version of the evolution line of Gengar, which is quite scary. Because like Clefable and Gengar have a very similar shape. It's quite weird how similar the shape is. Gengar is just like the evil, bad version, like the corrupted soul. And then you've got Haunter and Clefairy, which are also very similar with like the head, the pointy ear things. And then you've got Ghastly and Cleffa, which are like little round bowls. And it's quite interesting to see what Pokemon is trying to do, because they do look very similar. So the idea is that Clefable dies, or any of the evolutionary line dies, and they become evil and they come into Gengar. It's quite scary. So the next one I want to talk about is Kangaskhan. I did mention this in my prototype video again, but if you hatch a Kangaskhan, it will have a baby in its pouch when it hatches, which is quite a weird thought. But to explain this, I'm going to use the idea I spoke about in my prototype video. So what the original idea was that Marowak would evolve into Kangaskhan, and Cubone would be like the first in the evolutionary line. So the Cubone actually wears the skull of its dead mother, which would be a Kangaskhan, which is why the little pouch Pokemon in Kangaskhan's pouch doesn't have a skull. When the mother dies, the little Pokemon has to go free and wear its mother's skull. And then it loses its skull when it becomes a Kangaskhan, because its head's too big to fit on the skull, because it would be the same size as its skull. Which I think would be explaining quite well, but I think they removed it because it was a little bit disturbing that the children were wearing the dead mother's skulls on their head. That is a little bit freaky for Pokemon to include, but I do think that does explain why Kangaskhan is born with a baby in its pouch, because usually, well, originally it was probably meant that when you bred Kangaskhan you would get a Cubone, not a Kangaskhan. So the next one I want to talk about is Slowbro, which you might have heard about. The Pokedex entries, quote-unquote, says, the shelter that is latched onto Slowpoke's tail is said to feed on the host's leftover scraps. That's from red and blue. From yellow it says it lazily lives by the sea. If the shelter on its tail comes off, it becomes Slowpoke again. So what this is saying is that Slowbro is a Slowpoke with a Shelder on its tail, and you may notice the Shelder does look a bit different from the Shelder we used to, but we don't actually see Shelder's actual form within its shell, so you actually get to see what Shelder actually looks like, which is kind of scary. It's not so innocent anymore, because Shelder does look quite innocent and cute, but then its Slowbro tail is a little bit creepy. But what this says is that Shelder latches on to a Slowpoke's tail and leeches off its body while controlling it, because apparently it puts in some toxins that makes it fall asleep, and just slowly feeds off Slowpoke. And if it comes off, Slowpoke will be restored back to normal. But that is a really weird thought, that Shelder has mind control over Slowpoke, and it's another disturbing thought from Pokemon. So another water Pokemon from the first generation is Starmie. Staryu as well, so Starmie is the evolution of Staryu. So if I read the Pokedex says that the locals suspect it's an alien creature, and in the Crystal Pokedex it says it was used. It said that it uses 7-colored core of its body to send electric waves to outer space, and I'm guessing that means electromagnetic waves, because that would be the only thing that makes sense. So it kind of looks like Starmie is an alien and it comes from outer space, which is kind of strange because it sends signals to outer space, and apparently the locals suspect it's an alien creature anyway. Sorry, but that's really weird. And what the Staryu Pokedex says is that it regenerates parts of his body when they're cut off, which should be very alien-like. But the funny thing is, this is just like Deoxys, because when you cut like a limb off Deoxys, it will literally just straight away regenerate it, which is what the Pokedex entry says for Staryu. Like if you watch the Deoxys movie, that's what happens in it, which is really weird, like, because I never thought of Staryu or Starmie coming out of space before. And the other thing is that the orb within the Staryu/Starmie looks just like the orb inside of Deoxys' center, so maybe they have some relation to each other. Maybe Deoxys was planned from Generation 1. This is interlinking between all the generations. It's so cool. And you may have heard of Skitty, Hot Skitty on Wailord action before, because funnily enough, one of the smallest Pokemon, Skitty, can breed with the biggest, most massive Pokemon there is, Wailord, which is quite amusing to the internet and to everybody who notices it. But I've got something else for you. Magikarp. Now Magikarp, it must be quite a hot Pokemon because it can breed with the likes of Charizard, Dragonite, Milotic, Salamence, Garchomp, Scrafty, Haxorus, Druddigon, Hydreigon, and even Wailord if it wants to. It can get all these super powerful, super big, super amazing Pokemon. Even the most beautiful Pokemon, Milotic. So I must conclude that Magikarp must be quite a hottie of a Pokemon.
I'm sexy and I know it. Wiggle, 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 yeah. Wiggle, 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 yeah. Wiggle, 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 yeah. Wiggle, 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 yeah.
So Magnemite. You may notice that Magnemite can fly, but its Pokedex entry for Pokemon Sapphire says it blocks gravity. So Spiritomb, the 4th generation legendary Pokemon, is allegedly formed by 108 spirits fused together into the odd keystone. That's the Pokedex entry, says 108. Now, that's already disturbing enough, but why specifically 108? Maybe the Pokemon creators had some past issues with the number 108 or something. But anyway, let's move on to the question of the week. So this week's question of the week is a little bit different from the usual question of the week. I'm going to be asking you a question and then leaving you some time to go comment down below to tell me what you think the answer is, and then I'll tell you the answer. So the question is, how many tentacles do you think Tentacruel has? So here's a picture of Tentacruel. And how many tentacles do you think it has? Count them if you want to and comment down below what that number is. So I'll leave you time to go comment down below. Don't look it up at all, just comment down below what you think and I'll tell you the answer right in a second. So the answer is 80. 80 tentacles! Yes, Japan, you just made a Pokemon that has 80 tentacles that are all toxic and wrap around things, and I'm not going into any more detail, but the Pokedex for several generations, for pretty much them all, says that it has 80 tentacles, which is disturbing. Very disturbing, because that would just be crazy, but whatever. So yeah, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed all the ideas and the weird things and the creepy things in Pokemon. Hope I haven't disturbed you too much. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.